Welcome back, MTG Joe here. I am back from vacation, a couple days late, but we are here for a metagame breakdown, and we're going to be taking our first look into the standard best of one metagame after the release of Duskmourn. So we're going to look at the most popular decks in terms of play rate, corresponding win rate, and see where the meta kind of is shaking up after a couple days of the new set. We have about 5 days worth of data. People are still trying to get cards into the set. But we're going to be looking at data from Untapped GG, look at seeing kind of what's working, what's not so far, and kind of get a feel. It is still the first week, so people are still kind of experimenting, stuff like that. Usually I tell people a week to 2 weeks for the meta to kind of shake up, or like kind of settle from the shake up. Best of one's usually not as significant as you would see best of three. When we cover the best of three video for the next video, it's got a lot more variety in terms of just because you have access to sideboards. Best of one will tend to be more either polarized in terms of aggressive decks or hard control. The mid-range kind of in between doesn't really work as well as you would see in the other formats like best of three. So keep in mind, be wary at times, 100% broken. This deck is, the meta's ruined. It's way too early. People are still trying to get cards and stuff like that. Some decks like the Rakdos aggro deck are very easy to upgrade. It's 4 rare cards that you need. Whereas other decks like the Overlords are mythic heavy. So people on budget, people drafting still wouldn't have that there. But we are going to take a look. So I'm going to paste all these deck lists with the corresponding video timestamp. If you want to use Untapped to track your own win rates, to look at stats, stuff like that, the link is in the video description. Like I said, we'll come up with best of three for tomorrow as well. Just catching up. Just arrived at 4 a.m. yesterday. It is 10 a.m. today, so I'm off 6 hours sleep. But I wanted to get this out as quick as possible because I had people in the comments asking for it. So we're going to look at some ladder data. We're going to look at some individual performances of people who got to Mythic with some decks. And then there's one deck I just want to kind of point out because it's an archetype people love to play for some reason, but it's doing very poorly. So just if you are interested in it, just to kind of be mindful of it. Since it's the end of the month, we're going to look at Mythic only. We have 55,000 games played in the last 5 days. In terms of popularity, the Rakdos aggro, which is mono red Leyline, is at 23%. Mono black discard is at 9%. The discard deck just never really does. It's very popular, but it never has that good of a win rate. Boros Auras is kind of a new shell, 6%. The Oculus deck is a new deck, 6%. The mouse deck, mono red mice, is at 4%. Boros Tokens is about 4%, which has a pretty solid matchup into the Leyline deck. Golgari Midrange at 3.5. This is another deck that's much better in best of three. And then we have kind of Domain with the Overlords coming in at 3%. One thing I haven't consumed any Duskmourn content, just haven't been on vacation. So some of these lists might be other content creators. I usually try to shout out, hey, this is so-and-so's deck. I haven't really consumed much, so won't be able to do it in that regard. So we are, like I said, 55,000 matches. The highest win rate deck in Mythic is actually the the Azorius Oculus deck. So 59%. I think this is one of the few that I actually saw. Ash Lizzle was playing a bit of it in best of three. This one's at 59%. So we have a new card in Abhorrent Oculus, 3 mana, 5/5. Got an additional cost. You have to exile 6 cards from your library to be able to play it. Flying, and at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you manifest dread. So you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you put 1 onto the battlefield face down, and then 1 into your graveyard. And you can turn that face down card face up if it is a creature by paying its mana cost. So it's a way to kind of cheat into play. This is using the shell of the Monastery Mentor deck, but instead using this Oculus, which you already want to self-mill, and then it pays you off by then milling you some more. What you do is through self-mill, you bring it back with Helping Hand or Recommission, so 6 ways to kind of cheat it out. Into the Flood Maw is a very, very efficient way against these Leyline decks. They're throwing all their resources usually into a creature, just bounce it back to their hand. They kind of lose it from there. Phantom Interference is cheap counter, can be a creature as well. Sleight of Hand fills your graveyard or fills your hand. It's a cheap card. Kind of sets you up 3 steps ahead of some counters. Chart of Course can be a way to throw cards in your graveyard. Moment of Truth sets you up in that manner. Soul Partition as well. Now note this only has 6 pieces of cheap interaction. You may want to go up either some Elspeth Smite if you're running into a little bit of an issue. Elspeth Smite, I think, is a lot better against the Leyline version of Mono Red, just because a lot of their pump spells only add power. They don't add toughness. So that 3 damage, especially the Exile, is super relevant right now. That's something you may want to kind of consider as you're building out this deck, kind of moving off maybe 3 steps ahead and just play some more interaction if you'd like. We also have access to the new land Flood Farm Verge, which is a new untapped dual land in Azorius. From there, we go to pretty stock Azorius Control. Nothing like crazy here. This one, it's not showing the stats, but was at 59%. It's pretty much a list that we saw from before. It's using some bounce effects. Hornlock Whale, Elspeth Smite, not on my watch, another Exile removal, Spell Skyer as a cheap effect. You can do into the Flood Maws, another cheap interaction, but pretty much just kill, counter everything, win with whales, Sunfall tokens, or your lands. There's nothing really like crazy here, especially if you're still kind of collecting cards. This is super reasonable deck against the meta. It's a bit slower to play. To me, it's not the most fun. You're just answering everything and then kind of going from there. But it is a super efficient deck in terms of just dealing with a lot of the aggressive decks. We then go to Boros Auras. This one's at 58, just a shade under 59%. So it's kind of a mouse sub-theme just because they care about the Valiant. So you have your Manifold Mouse, your Emberheart Challenger, as well as Heartfire Hero. And then a new card, Optimistic Scavenger. So 1 mana, 1/1. And this is kind of, we've had these effects in the past where if you cast an enchantment or an enchantment enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter. So this has got the Eerie effect. So when an enchantment enters or you fully unlock a room, the room part's not really relevant in this deck, but you get to put a counter on another target creature. Then we're playing a bunch of pumps and auras. Ethereal Armor is a reprint, very strong one. You enchant creature, gets +1/1 for each other enchantment you control, as well as First Strike. Monstrous Rage is obviously a card very strong. We have Shard Mage's Rescue. So 1 mana, flash, and then it's a way to give hexproof to protect your creature, as well as give it +1 power. We have some Ruckuses in here. Feather of Flight, 2 mana, enters, draws a card, so it replaces itself, which is nice, and gives flying for evasion. Sheltered by Ghosts is the big one here. So this has got a lot of text for an uncommon. 2 mana, already nice. Exile, target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Sheltered by Ghost leaves the battlefield. This deals with all the mono red creatures. It can deal with the Leyline if needed. It could deal with temporary lockdown. Just super efficient. But then, not only that, it gets +1/0 and has lifelink and ward 2. So I ran into this. I was playing a little at the airport yesterday, just trying out the mono red deck. Just before my flight, and like this Shelter by Ghost just ruined me. Just giving your ability to like gain 5 hurts kind of in terms of trying to catch up. The ward is super relevant when, especially in the aggro mirrors, where 2-3 lands is the most decks are kind of curving out to. You have Itali's Favor, 3 mana. It has Discover, so this kind of cascades you into another aura, which is nice. And then it gives your creature +1/1 and it has trample. So it's kind of just multiple auras or multiple creatures kind of in one. The only kind of downside is we didn't get a new land in Boros, so you're playing some Thran Portal still. Then go to the 4-color Reanimator deck. This is the Squirming Emergence. So I will say the only thing, this one doesn't really show it, but I've seen some versions starting to play Valgavoth as well as a couple pieces in the top end. So this is something you can very easily add into the deck. Still pretty early, so people are kind of messing around, but 2 Valgavoth, probably where I would be at. I would trim probably like a Lumra and then maybe like a Cruelty of Gix. That's probably where I'd be, or like a Chart of Course. Yeah, I'd probably trim a Lumra, trim a Chart of Course. I would probably just get rid of like Cedaho, play more into the Flood Maws. I may even go like full 4 into the Flood Maws over Cutdown. The problem is Cutdown's not actually that great against the Leyline deck because they can quickly outscale it, where into the Flood Maws always guaranteed. You just want to build tempo with this deck, but kind of the core of the deck is you self-mill, and then you use Squirming Emergence to reanimate any of your big threats. I can kind of go from there. You have Sweepers and Terror Tide. Honestly, I don't even think you need Nissa. This might just be something to cut in the best of 1 version. Just play a lot of 1 mana interaction. While Whale of Forgotten can be a bounce effect, can give you some card selection, can be discard as needed as well. Then the boogeyman of the format, Rakdos Aggro. 59%. Reddit, I was reading Reddit, I didn't watch much content, but every other post is this deck needs to be banned, yada, 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 yada. I found it, okay, first off, when you have your crazy draws, yeah, it can win on turn 2. But I found it super inconsistent compared to some of them. So this particular version is on no, this is the highest win rate version, first off, at 59%. You will see the actual mouse in some of them. So you'll see Emberheart Challenger in some of the lists. You want to go with something like that. This one is very light and just all the pump effects instead. I found this kind of awkward. So Callous Sellsword doesn't actually double because how the Leyline works is it's targets only a single creature. The Leyline or the Burn Together has 2 targets, the target creature plus another target. So it doesn't double that effect. The copies doesn't double prowess as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Quick thing you can do is up the number, or you could play some black lines in here. I was playing between 16 and 20. I was flooding on like 18 and missing lines on 16. Just a weird kind of day. But if we look at some of like the lists itself, like some of them are playing 17 lands. Even this one doesn't have the Emberheart, but it's playing some Shocks main. There's little to no interaction in these decks. As they kind of play out. They're very linear in terms of the deck itself, but kind of the core for those unfamiliar. Leyline of Resonance in your opening hand, you put it onto the battlefield for free, and then it doubles the spells, so you can use things like Turn Inside Out, any of the pump effects with Scamp on turn 2, and then it just flings itself, Monstrous Rage, all very strong ways to kind of pump through damage. It's a deck that kind of, this is my hand, this is how he plays. There's not really much card advantage. The kind of closest is like the Might of the Meek. I think I would probably trim on, like I was playing 3 Sellswords. I was playing the mouse in there. Again, I wasn't super, like it could win for sure. And you have to respect it. And I think that's important. But I just found it oddly inconsistent. You have to mulligan a lot, not necessarily for the Leyline, but to kind of get reasonable hands, if it would be, because you're playing a deck with like a lot of weird effects. Like I had hands all pump spells, I had hands all creatures, and then it just didn't work out as well. So to me, the jury's still out. It's an annoying deck, I think, just because you have to respect it. But I think even if you, like people are saying ban Leyline or stuff like that, there's always going to be an aggressive deck in the format. People are going to die. Like even with this like Reanimator deck, you could turn 3 Atraxa, which most decks can't be, or Valgavoth, or Lumira, whatever it may be. Like that's the nature of best of one, in regardless. So this was kind of like another take on the mono red deck. This one is from Ultra Force. This one's 40 and 16, so it's just kind of the stock mouse version. And the thing that this one has that the other ones don't is just a lot of interaction between Lightning Strike and Shock. It helps you in the mirrors, so you could kind of be a little bit more interactive while still putting the pressure. There's fewer kind of dead cards in the sense of like cards that only work if you have a creature on board and stuff like that. So the Manifold Mouse kind of doubles your power. So it's not as explosive in terms of like turn 2. It's probably a turn 4 kill, but it's probably more consistent just in terms of executing your game plan over a number of games. So it's kind of another variation of the mono red. Domain, for whatever reason, is just not cooperating in terms of pulling up the individual page. We're going to look at it like this. So this version's at 57%. Not too much in terms of updates. The biggest thing is Overlord of the Hauntwoods. So this here, this one's kind of an interesting one in terms of some of the cards they're playing. But the Overlord's the biggest card here. Comes down on 3, gets you an everything land, which instantly turns you on to Domain, and kind of gets you going in that regard. And then when it comes into play or attacks, you get more lands that way there. This version's 2 Archangels, 3 Atraxas. You still have your Caverns and stuff like that. We have the Invasion of Arcavios that lets you tutor to the sideboard, which we'll cover to a sec. Some interesting cards here. We have the Cosmic Rebirth. The Shana is probably not needed. I would probably just play Mark Archangel of Wrath. You may want like Elspeth's Smite as a card in this deck. You're not really playing till turn 3 in this configuration, which is probably a little too slow in my opinion. While you do have the ley lines, you're not guaranteed like a turn 2 ley line in this deck. So if I were to play this, I would cut the Shana, cut the Zergo, cut a Cornucopia probably, and then play like 3 to 4 Elspeth Smite somewhere in there. Similar with the Cosmic Rebirth, you're not really getting back much stuff. I would cut the Cosmic Rebirth entirely. I want to see if there's a better version of Domain. I don't know. I'm looking at that deck and I'm just like not thrilled with it in a way. All right, this one looks a lot cleaner. We just don't have a huge population right now. Let me just see. This is kind of the problem. Like with the first week, people are still trying out a lot of stuff. I just think you have to be more respectful of the decks. So in all honesty, like I think this version's probably a little cleaner. Looking at the two, like if you want to get some ideas from this, but this doesn't do much on its own. If we look at this one here, you still have your Hauntwoods, you have the Overlord of the Mistmoors in here, the Herd Migrations that helps you a bit get lost, Full Archangel, the Atraxa package in there, so a lot of incidental life gain. I think, like I said, Elspeth Smite's a card you probably want some numbers of over like a Sunfall. 5 mana is not very good against the mono red deck. It's going to be the most popular. You want like cheap interaction earlier on to kind of get you going. So I'd probably play a couple Elspeth Smite, just kind of trim on some of the numbers there. So I'm going to get rid of this one. I don't think it's that good. All right, so then we have Boros Tokens. So this is pretty stock list from before. I was trying out a couple things. The Haunt is probably the kind of newest card there. I was playing one, the Overlord of the Mistmoors. I think it kind of fits the shell pretty well. It is a little pricey, so you're paying it on 4, but it curves nice going caretakers into it, gives you a lot of blockers. My version, I was on 3 smites, 4 towers. The big thing again is it just plays out pretty nice. I think having the Sunfalls, I would do like 2-1 maybe with the white. Make a 2-2, the enchantment. I'm still on vacation mode, my brain. You could kind of tweak some of the numbers, but you have your lockdowns, stuff like that. You may want 2 Elspeths. The life gain is pretty relevant. You could try Beza. There's a couple different configurations you can go here, but a lot of cheap removal helps the deck kind of go from there. Forge is good against the black decks as well. So I think this is a super reasonable shell. So the deck that I want to warn people about, mono black midrange. So people love Bloodletter, double your damage. So there's a new way with Unstoppable Slasher. Slasher deals combat damage to player. They lose half their life rounded up. With the Bloodletter, basically one-shots your opponent. People love this. The Insatiable Avarice, Shieldred kind of line. Just all these like ways to like one-shot, but you end up just playing kind of a odd mono black shell at times. 48%, so just kind of giving people a warning there. I'll link the deck list if you still want to have fun with it. It's a deck here that you can try out. So a couple other decks. So this one went 29 and 13. This is Gruul Aggro by SRP 101. So it's kind of a Delirium shell. So there's been a couple modern lists leveraging. I saw Aspiring Spike played one with Patchwork Beastie. So 1 mana, 3/3, great stats, but it can't block or attack unless you have Delirium. So 4 more card types in your library. And being your upkeep, you may mill a card. So this deck here, it's got a lot of cheap removal, shocks, torch the towers, hard-hitting questions. So Note Scout can help you find a land, or you can put cards into your graveyard. We have a 1 of Violent Urge. Gives creature +1/0 in first strike, but if you have Delirium, it gives it double strike as well. Inti kind of loots you. We have Stubborn Burrow Fiend, 2 mana, 2/2, becomes saddled for the first time each turn. You mill 2 cards. So it kind of self-enables. It can get bigger as well. Wildfire Wickerfolk, 2 mana, 3/2 haste. So reasonable stats on its own. And then 2 types, artifact and creature. If Delirium, it becomes a 4/3 trample haste, which is really solid. Screaming Nemesis, stealth damage. You can deal damage to any other target. If it's stealth to your opponent, they can't gain life for the rest of the turn, which is nice. The Simian Simulacrum, 2 creature types, can put some counters on things. Can be played out of your graveyard, which is okay. I think that's probably the weakest card in the deck. There's probably some better stuff you can play in there. Balder Trade Worm, 5 mana, 5/5, can't be countered. Can return from your graveyard if you have Delirium for 4 mana. Trample haste, reasonable stats. You could play say its name and then the like Alterek, whatever the 9/9 for free is. That kind of self-enables the mill as well. There's a couple different options you can play there. Biggest thing for Gruul, we got a dual land, so kind of plays in there. Fable Passage isn't great in an aggressive deck, but it's a way to put lands into your graveyard. But I think all things considered, you don't necessarily need the Fable Passage because you'll be self-milling at times. So you can kind of look at that. You could play Fear of Missing Out. So instead of the Simulacrum, you can play Fear of Missing Out. That gives you kind of double combat. It's an enchantment, which there's no other enchantments in the deck. So another way to kind of turn on Delirium there. We then go to Quargos. They want 120 and 70. So this is an update to kind of the Lifegain deck. So the card that came in is Enduring Tenacity. 4 mana, 4/3. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So kind of the Dina ability, Sanguine Bond, I think. So when it dies, it becomes an enchantment, similar effect. So lots of ways to gain life. Amalia gets you kind of triggers to kind of get you card advantage. Virtue now kills the creature, potentially gains you 3 life, drains them 3. The Zorlin gets triggers. The Skrelv's Hive for kind of grindy advantage. With Case gets you some value. An engine for Ruthless Lawbringer. Sheltered by the Ghosts in here. Edicts as some removal. Lunar Convocation as another way to kind of get some value. I will say you probably don't want like as many Lunar Convocations or even like Edicts. I would probably rather have some Elspeth Smite, cut downs, just some targeted removal. I think would be a little bit better in here. You can also just play Bat, Eat Away at their hand. The lifelink is relevant, curves nicely. Bat into Zorlin as well. In that sense. And then not a huge population. I just want to kind of show the idea because I think the deck's super reasonable. I ran into this once or twice and it does draw a lot of cards, which is nice. So it's the Enduring Curiosity. So it's a flash creature. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. When it dies, kind of the enchantment effect with Gix. And then you just have a bunch of cheap flyers. Spyglass Siren, Deep Cavern Bat, Fairy Mastermind, Blood Pit's Drowner, 2 mana, 2/1. Enters battlefield, tap target creature, you put a stun counter on it. Vigilance is nice. Plumcreed Escort as a flyer that can protect something, give it hexproof. Cheap interaction, go for the throat. Flood Maws, Phantom Interference as a counter. Urtai's removal, as well as kind of counters in there. So kind of tempo-oriented flash deck. Draws you a bunch of cards, attacks them in the air, can interact with their board, slow them down, and just refill their hand, kind of in that sense. The mana base is little, I think the demolition fields probably aren't needed in this type of shell, especially for best of one. I would play maybe just more duels. We got the dual land in this, the new untapped one, so I would just kind of make space for that in the deck itself. So that is it. Early stages. Again, it's early in the meta. Like, people just still pick up the cheapest decks, which happens to be mono red. Just you're adding 4 Leylines. It's very cheap. Or some of these decks, like we saw, a lot of mythics or new cards, stuff like that, and kind of going from there. Let me know what you think of the format, if you've been enjoying it or not, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.